Hello, this is Dias and a new author's story from my channel Russian Revenge Story. Lera was walking down the street. So what should she do now? All, absolutely all her plans, all her dreams had collapsed overnight, and all because she didn't believe Zina Grigoryevna, her teacher. But she had said, Lerochka, you can try, of course, but understand, our life is not entirely fair. And I would rather accept someone who can't add 2 plus 2 but has very rich parents into such a prestigious financial university. Lera didn't believe it then. Well, that can't be. She's a mathematician. And such a mathematician that her teacher at school already in the 6th grade threw up his hands and said that she didn't have to come to his lessons at all. But Lera went. She went and learned what they studied at the institutes. She adored the exact sciences. It seemed that in Lera's life there would never be anything more interesting than numbers. Today the results were posted. The names of those who were accepted for training, her name was not there, although Lera was 100% sure that everything was perfect in her exams. But she found the name of the girl who took the exam with her. She saw with her own eyes how the girl just sat there for the entire allotted time, and before taking the exam, she put a card between the sheets of paper, a bank card, and wrote a number and a small symbol under it, the English S crossed out with 2 strokes. Lera, out of habit, immediately calculated how much this came to in hours, and almost fainted. Of course, how can she compete with such mathematical aces? She almost burst into tears. She stood aimlessly, looking at the lists. Someone said from behind, "Look, this scruffy girl is looking for her name. What a fool!" Lera turned around and ran. She immediately realized that they were talking about her. Then she just wandered aimlessly through the streets. She urgently needed to find a job. There was very little money left, barely enough for a week. It was good that they had at least given her a room in a communal apartment for now. They said that they were looking for an apartment for her for now, because they were supposed to as an orphan. But Lera had heard that there were many cases when such a room was all that was needed. But she was not discouraged. Her neighbors were good, and Baba Zina even fed her. Lera sat down on a bench near some beautiful building. It seemed to be a bank. Her thoughts were in a jumble. She wanted to eat and also cry. Suddenly the bank door swung open and a woman jumped out, shaking her fist. "Who needs you? I can find a job 100 times better." She headed towards Lera and plopped down on the bench next to her. "No, that's what they think of themselves. Their clients, you see, are serious, as if I were you." So what? So what if she drank a little? Only now did Lera notice that the woman was slightly tipsy. From the further mumbling, she realized that the stranger had given up 3 months of her life for this organization, and not just like that. She had been fired for the smell alone, and she had worked for them as a cleaner. When the woman disappeared, a crazy thought occurred to Lera. She stood up and headed for the bank doors. What if? She explained to the security guard at the entrance that she had come about a vacancy, a cleaner. She was immediately led into some woman's office. "How did you find out about the vacancy?" "We only had it 15 minutes ago." Lera told him that their former employee had sat down on the bench next to her. "That's it, I understand, Nasha Semyonovna. They warned her twice, but nothing helped. Can you even sweep floors?" "I can do everything. I have no choice, so I've been hired, but on probation." Lera could hardly restrain herself from clapping her hands. They showed her where everything was, and she got to work. She did everything carefully. Honestly, I would like to tear off this Semenovna's hands for cleaning up like that. There were surprises in every corner. A couple of weeks later, Lera already knew that this bank was young. The owner was about 30, but he was not there now, he had gone somewhere. The one who received her was Mikhail Sergeyevich's assistant and deputy. Lera also learned that this bank had big salaries, and people were holding on tight to their jobs. She saw the owner for the first time 2 months later. The fact that he had arrived was indicated by the commotion that was going on in the bank. All the employees were acting so active that Lera found it funny. Of course, she was very envious of them all, especially the people who were doing the calculations, that is, making a profit for this very bank. Mikhail Sergeyevich turned out to be a young and rather handsome man. This was the prince Lera had seen in her dreams. But who was he and who was she? The girl threw all extraneous thoughts out of her head and, as usual, picked up the mop. "Lurk, are you coming to lunch?" Natasha looked into her utility room. She worked in the operating room, meeting and seeing off clients, advising them on who to contact with this or that question. She was a good girl. I was one of the first to make friends with Lera. "No, Natasha, I'm having pancakes with cottage cheese today. I'm here." Lera pointed to the set table in the corner and continued, "Or maybe you can come with me. I have plenty." Natasha stood for a while, then waved her hand. "I can't refuse your cooking." They sat down, and Natasha sighed. "Have you thought about where you're going?" "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" "Well, a job." "Where are you going to look for it?" Lera stopped chewing. "Why should I look for a job? Actually, I was going to stay here until the next admission. Don't you know anything?" Natasha's eyes widened. "Come on, tell me clearly. If I, as you say, knew something, I wouldn't ask." The girl lowered her voice. "In general, no one seems to know anything, but everyone is already talking about it. Mikhail Sergeyevich is beside himself. They say that a little more, and the bank will go bankrupt. That is, we will all go looking for new places." "It can't be. And why? After all, everything was fine." "Oh, there's something really complicated there. Someone, I don't know, suggested to our boss to invest money somewhere I don't know either. Well, and he lost everything. He says that only a miracle can save us." "A miracle? What kind of miracle?" "Oh, I don't know. Well, miracles don't happen in this world. But Rima Makarovna said that something like this is needed. In general, everything needs to be calculated so precisely that we can stay afloat for 3 months, and only after 3 months will the insurance return something there. And if we don't hold out, that's it, the end of the bank, and there's no one to count on. We don't have such specialists, and never have." Lera was incredibly upset. She would definitely not find a salary like here anywhere. Natasha had left long ago, and Lera was still thinking and thinking. In the evening, when the office was empty, she went out to wash the floors. She always left the boss's office for later. He left later than everyone else. When the rest was finished, she went to his office. Mikhail Sergeyevich was sleeping. He was sleeping, resting his head on his hands. There were folders with papers around, and that very rescue plan was lying next to him. Lera looked into it. And what do we have? She ran her eyes over the lines and did not understand where such panic came from. After all, it was quite possible to work with such leftovers. Interesting. Lera shuddered. She did not even notice that the boss had woken up and was looking straight at her. "Excuse me. So what did you see there?" She couldn't figure out if he was being serious or mocking. His brown eyes were looking at her, and she wanted to hide from that look. But Lera was from an orphanage, and such people come out of there that you can't scare them right away. A lot of things? Well, look, for example. And Lera began to speak quickly, showing him some figures in the plan. At first he looked at her, then finally looked at the paper. After about 5 minutes, he was already asking questions with interest. Lera came to her senses about 20 minutes later. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll clean up in the morning." But Mikhail Sergeyevich was no longer listening to her. He was immersed in the figures. Lera turned away from the threshold. It was a pity that she was like that, but not from his circle. He was like that. She quickly closed the door behind her. In the morning, as soon as Lera entered her little room to change, Rima Makarovna flew in. "Lera!" She even jumped. "What happened, Rima Makarovna?" She was still asking. "Our quiet one. Run like a bullet to the boss's office. Everyone's already there." Lera was dumbfounded. "Why?" "Why? Well, let's go and you'll find out everything." Lera left the closet and, under Rima Makarovna's supervision, headed for the office. "And why didn't you tell me that you understood banking so well?" "What are you saying? I don't understand it at all." Lera looked at her boss in bewilderment. "But Mikhail Sergeyevich told me something completely different." "Well, this isn't banking. It's just numbers. How and where to get enough to make it the other way around. You see, if you forget that this is a bank, then you can calculate and adjust everything like an ordinary problem." Rima Makarova shook her head and opened the door for her. Lera froze. She met his gaze. There were other people in the office. Lera didn't know them because they didn't clean during working hours. "Well, come in, Valeria, don't be shy. It's easy to say when so many eyes are looking at you." She pulled herself together and walked to the empty chair. Mikhail Sergeyevich moved it aside and helped her sit down. "Gentlemen, yesterday this lovely creature, waving a pencil, did in 3 minutes what you and I have been struggling with for a week. I still don't understand how we haven't seen such a simple solution, but you all saw the result. Valeria, I would like to ask, what is your education?" She shrugged her shoulders, embarrassed. "I finished school. I didn't get into the financial institute, although I passed the exams." Mikhail Sergeyevich stared at her. "What school? If I'm not mistaken, you're already 20? 21. I went to school at 9, after I ended up in an orphanage." "You mean to say that, without any special education, yesterday you... Unbelievable. You know, I have to ask, would you like to look at everything and maybe suggest a way out of this situation?" Someone at the table said, "No, well, this is complete nonsense. A cleaning lady will save a bank from bankruptcy. Excuse me, but I'm not going to take part in this." Mikhail Sergeyevich turned to him. "Sit down. Actually, it was your department that failed to cope with the task." The man blushed and sat down. "Lera, what do you think?" She smiled slightly. "Nothing so far. I need to look at everything." "Well, it's like a puzzle. Until you understand the terms, there will be no solution." Lera was sitting in Mikhail Sergeyevich's office. The mountain of papers she had looked through was gradually growing. She put some aside, not looking at the time. That's why, when Mikhail Sergeyevich put his hand on her shoulder and said that she needed to have lunch, she stared at him with an uncomprehending look. "Valeria, take an hour off. Lunch was brought right here." She smiled gratefully. She took the papers she had put aside and sat down on the sofa. Mikhail was already taking food out of the containers he had brought. Today, the entire office had lunch at their desks. These are the clients with whom we need to stop working or sign a contract on different terms. Just look at the interest rates. No bank can offer them. Mikhail raised an eyebrow. looked at the papers. He was a little stunned by what he saw there. He went to the door and asked the secretary to invite Rima. Valeria heard him say to her, "What is this? Tell me, since when have we been doing charity work? Find out who signed the contracts and come to me on the carpet." For 2 months, Lera practically lived in Mikhail Sergeyevich's office. In the pauses between calculations and checking documents, they talked. Mikhail turned out to be not only an interesting man, he was also an excellent conversationalist and a person with a good sense of humor. He asked Lera many times about her life, about her dreams. It was easy for her to talk to him, and she told him everything honestly. The day came, or rather that evening, when Mikhail received a call and was told that the insurance had been credited to the accounts. He jumped up, grabbed Lera, and twirled her around the office. "Lerka, we won. That's it, we're saved." Lera looked at him, smiled, and she herself wanted to cry. Of course, she was happy for him, but this meant that they would no longer be together. "I'm inviting you to a restaurant." "No, we've spent so much time within four walls, I don't want to go to a restaurant." They went on a picnic. An hour later, Mikhail was already lighting a fire, and Lera was cutting vegetables on a makeshift table. They were on the very outskirts of the city, by the river. There weren't even any houses here. That night was the most wonderful in Lera's life. She had no one before Misha, and she didn't regret one bit that he was her first. 2 days off had passed. Of course, Lera hoped that Mikhail would at least call, but she understood Nadezhda was little. He was a banker, the owner of a bank, and she was an orphanage cleaning janitor. On Monday, as usual, she came to work. Rima Makarovna met her. Hiding her eyes, she said that she needed to get her payment and that Mikhail Sergeyevich had fired her. Lera was taken aback. "Why? Did I do something wrong?" Rima looked at her. We don't understand anything ourselves. We're all just in shock. This morning, as soon as I arrived, I immediately told him to prepare an order for your dismissal. I wanted to ask, but he roared so much." Lera raised her head. "Okay, she'll leave." Mikhail left the office and immediately approached Rima. "Was Lera here?" "Yes, she got her pay." "And where is she?" Rima looked at the boss with such a look that he was even a little taken aback. "She's probably looking for a job in the city, or maybe she's crying at home. You can fire me, of course, but I'll tell you, what you did to Lera is ugly, wrong." Mikhail smiled. "Rima Makarova, I adore you." He kissed the confused woman and rushed to the exit. Lera was already approaching the house when a familiar SUV blocked her way. Misha jumped out of it, and he had a bouquet of flowers in his hands. Lera stopped and looked at him. "Ler, why are you staring at me?" "Yes, I fired you, but only so that you could study normally. And I forgot to tell you that you were enrolled in a financial institute. Well, the rector is my client." "Are you serious?" Misha looked around, then asked, "Am I not the only one here?" Lera laughed and punched him in the chest. "I was so offended, so angry. Why did you do everything like this?" 2 months passed. In the office, Mikhail was still looked at askance, but preparations for the New Year's corporate party were in full swing. Everyone had already sat down at the table, which was located in the best restaurant in town. Only the boss was missing. Judging by the fact that there were 2 chairs at the head of the table, Mikhail Sergeyevich would not be alone. He would obviously drag along another long-legged, empty-headed babe. Finally, he appeared. Next to him was an insanely beautiful girl. A silver floor-length dress, a high hairstyle, beautiful makeup. She did not look like the boss's previous girlfriends, and she also reminded her of someone. Rima jumped up. Lurka! Everyone got excited, rushed to hug the girl. Even the boss was pushed aside. Mikhail smiled. When everything had calmed down more or less, he tapped his glass with a fork. I want to introduce you to my bride. We are getting married in 3 weeks. I invite everyone who is here with us now. I know that you have all been thinking about me for the last 2 months, but I am not offended. I am happy that I have people working with me, not robots. Lera is studying now, so she has no time to wash the floors. The table laughed, and someone shouted for love. Lera turned to her future husband and happily looked into his eyes. If you liked the story, please support me with a like. And to learn about the release of new, interesting stories, subscribe to my channel. All the best to you. Thank you for watching.